Are you thinking about buying a home in Loma Linda, California? Well, if you are, I would pump the brakes for just a few minutes, or at least until you watch this video, because there are some things that if you're not familiar, if you're not a local from this area, that you should probably know about Loma Linda before you make a big decision like buying or selling real estate here in the Inland Empire. Okay, so we're gonna get into some things that you just need to be fair warned about, and also the positives. There are a number just absolutely delightful things about Loma Linda that would be very appealing to many people. Loma Linda, its hospital, its university, is actually a big part of my life, right? I was born and raised here in Redlands, but I myself was born there. Both my children were born at Loma Linda. My wife actually came to Southern California to do some of, most all of her graduate school, and now works at Loma Linda. So it's a huge part of our lives. But there are some things that I think you'd be happy to know if you aren't familiar with Loma Linda, its community, the university, and its hospital, right? So that's what we're gonna do in this video. First off, let me just give you a little bit of an overview about Loma Linda, and then we'll get into some specifics. Okay, so the first thing you need to know, and Loma Linda is world famous. Okay, it is known as one of the blue zones in this little pocket of the Inland Empire. Okay, so what is a blue zone? A blue zone is an area of the world for a combination of reasons, and we're not gonna get too specific into that. I actually did another video on Loma Linda. It looks like this right here. If you wanna check out that video, I get into a little bit more specifics on the whys of how Loma Linda and its residents get along. But essentially, a blue zone is a place where its residents lead extraordinarily longer lives than the rest of the population. And essentially for Loma Linda, what it comes down to, a different kind of diet, different outlook on wellness and faith, right? And so those three things all come together to produce an area of the world where people just live extraordinarily long lives. Okay, there are all kinds of places around the world, and most of them are more remote than Loma Linda, but Loma Linda does qualify. Okay, the city itself, just about 25,000 people live in the city of Loma Linda, so definitely on the smaller side, right? If you're talking about a very populous Southern California in general. But, it's very close to big cities like San Bernardino, like Riverside, bigger cities like Redlands, right? So even though it has that small town feel, it's definitely still in the melting pot of a very populous area in general here in Southern California. So I hope that gives you a kind of overview of Loma Linda itself. So like I said, we're gonna get into the pros and the cons of living in Loma Linda. So, I wouldn't want you, let's say a year, 18 months down the line, to be sitting in your new home and all of a sudden you kind of feel like, you weren't warned about some of these things living in Loma Linda. All right, so first of all, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, welcome. Thank you for watching, really appreciate it. Please go ahead and hit that like button, comment on perhaps your favorite parts or what you'd like to see more of, and I would really appreciate it if you also subscribe. That way you get to learn more and more about what it's like to live here in the Empire, so you can make informed decisions when it comes to buying or selling real estate here in this area. My name is Peter Kane. I'm a real estate agent with Century 21 Lois Lauer, based out of Redlands. but we're always in our surrounding communities like Loma Linda, finding just the best properties for our clients. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Go to that homepage of my YouTube channel, hit that first link, and we can schedule a time to meet online. All right, now let's take a look at the pros and cons of living in Loma Linda. All right, now let's start positive, right? We'll start on the pro side. So for me, the very first thing, the pro of living in Loma Linda is Loma Linda University and its hospital, right? So perhaps you're in the medical field yourself. Profession-wise, it is a very good place to work. I know from experience, not myself personally, but my wife has worked at Loma Linda Hospital for going on seven and a half years. So not only the hospital itself, but it has an outstanding medical school, dental school. So all kinds of great aspects in and around Loma Linda University and its hospital. You find people from all walks of life that find their way to Loma Linda, whether, they're doctors, nurses, healthcare technicians of some sort, or whatever it may be. Loma Linda University and its hospital is definitely the central parts of living in Loma Linda. Now, another pro and very much tied to its university is the great education that you'd receive living in Loma Linda, right? So starting on the younger age side of things, if you have school-aged kids living in Loma Linda, Loma Linda is not that big of a city, so it doesn't have its own school districts. It joins Redlands Unified School District, right? So couple elementary schools. Once your kids are in middle school, then they would be going to Cope Middle School on Cypress Avenue. And then once they hit that high school age, they would be going to the original Redlands High School. So apart from that, you also have great school attached to Loma Linda, like I said. So if you have school-age kids, there's Loma Linda Academy, and I think that goes all the way from kindergarten all the way through high school. So it would definitely be a bit of a different experience than public schools. Schools would be, class sizes would be much smaller. School is much smaller in general, but definitely a very good option. Once you're to that university age, of course, Loma Linda University, very, very well-respected university here in this area. So education is definitely a pro to living in Loma Linda. Now, another pro of living in Loma Linda is just the very calm and slower paced lifestyle, right? Like I said, there's only about 25,000 people that live in Loma Linda. When I'm in that community, I just feel like everything is just a couple paces slower, if you will. I would think that many of the residents are connected to either the hospital, the university, or the neighboring VA hospital. So I don't think those folks have a ton of transportation time to work, right? Their commutes aren't that bad. It just feels like a very, very just relaxed and slow-paced lifestyle. So I would definitely consider that a pro of living in Loma Linda, California. Now, we're also going to talk about the things that you should be fair warned about. So I think the number one con that you need to be kind of warned about, and this I guess it depends on your personality, right? Some people might view it as a pro, like we already talked about, but if you're not associated with the university, the hospital, it may seem a little bit boring, right? There's not a ton in terms of entertainment options and just pretty much things to do, right? You do have, very serviceable, shopping in terms of grocery markets and things like that. But in terms of like going out to see a movie or going out just find something to do, you're probably gonna be traveling outside of Loma Linda. The good news is, right, you wouldn't be traveling too far, right? So if you need to get some more shopping done at Mountain Grove in Redlands, or seeing a movie there, that's not too long of a commute. Or if you want to get into some more entertainment options, perhaps in downtown Riverside, that's maybe only, 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on traffic. And then of course, traveling out to perhaps downtown Los Angeles, Orange County, or in the San Diego area, if you want to get into some entertainment options like going to the beach, finer dining, or perhaps zoos and those kinds of things, you'd be definitely traveling outside of Loma Linda. So again, like I said, pretty much depends on the person, but it could be a little bit boring living in Loma Linda. Now, another con to living in Loma, and again, this really depends on your background, just the person you are, but if you yourself are not a part of the dominant faith, I would say, in Loma Linda, which is SDA or Seventh-day Adventist, you might feel kind of left out in, pretty much one day of the week. Let's say you have friends that you see quite often and they are part of that community. They're pretty much not going to be available to hang out with you on Saturdays. Or like, let's say you have kids and they're on some kind of youth sports team. Well, if you have games or practices on Saturdays, your kids' team is going to look a lot different on Saturdays than it is the rest of the week, right? Because from Friday sunset until Saturday sunset, for those 24 hours, the kids on the team who are SDA are going to be spending all that time, with their families at home and at church, right? So perhaps just something to know, or something to be, so you're not surprised that it's definitely a thing where people in your lives are going to be just gone that day. If you yourself are SDA, then you already know about this, right? And that's a great part of your life that you leave for your family and your faith as a rest day at home. But if you have no idea about it, I think it's a pretty good idea to know that it's a huge part of the life and culture living in Loma Linda. Getting back to the pros of living in Loma Linda, I'd say a big one is just the diversity that you, your spouse, or your family, or whoever would get to experience living in Loma Linda. Like I said, Loma Linda University, its hospital, attracts people from all over the world, all sorts of walks of life. Much like the rest of Southern California, you're gonna meet people with all kinds of different backgrounds and experiences that I definitely think is a pro to living in Loma Linda, and then also in Southern California in general. Okay, now unfortunately, let's get back to another con of living in Loma Linda. We already talked about it's only about 25,000 people who actually live in Loma Linda. However, there's still quite a bit of traffic and congestion, right? That's only the amount of people that actually live there, but there are tens of thousands of more of people who travel to or through, in and out of Loma Linda every single day, right? So we live in Redlands. I already mentioned my wife works at the hospital there. So it's pretty much a guessing game for her whether she's gonna take the freeway from Redlands, hop on the 10 for about 8 or 9 miles, or whether she's going to go through Redlands, West Redlands, and then Barton Road. So you definitely need to pay attention to, the day of the week, right? And what time you're traveling, because you could definitely get on the wrong side of traveling up and down Barton Road, or, getting off the 10 at Tippecanoe or Mountain View, or, in and around Loma Linda Academy at certain times can get really bad in terms of just congestion. So definitely be fair warned about that. Might take some getting used to just like living in the rest of Southern California. Now, another con that I've talked about in my other videos as well is living in Southern California in general, and then specifically here in Loma Linda, is definitely the weather, right? Many people, they just kind of automatically assume living in Southern California, it's always just, sunny and 75 degrees and beautiful all the time. Well, that's just not the case. I would say a good 2 to 3, sometimes 4 months out of the year, you're pretty much dealing with unbearable heat. You're just kind of counting down the weeks, counting down the months until we get some cool weather coming through. It's not uncommon for Loma Linda to, reach triple digits for 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. So, once you get into July, August, September, sometimes even October, it can just get really hot. Now, the good news is throughout the rest of the year, right, pretty much like from like November to May and June, it is rather nice. And then we can get into that debate about a dry heat versus humidity. Fortunately, when it gets hot here, it's not too muggy, it's rather dry. So you can get used to it, but if you are coming from clear different part of the country, it will definitely take some getting used to living in general in Southern California, away from the coast, and in Loma Linda, just kind of dealing with the heat, unfortunately. All right, so there you have it. Just some background information about just the daily ins and outs of living in Loma Linda, California before you make a really big decision like buying a home in this area. Like I said, I wouldn't want you to be sitting in your new home about a year from now thinking, man, I really wish I kind of knew about some of this stuff before I made a big decision like buying a home here. Please do not hesitate to reach out, whether you're just watching my videos and are just kind of starting to think about possibly moving here, or whether you're more advanced and know that you're coming and are starting to look for places to live. Please hit that first link in my YouTube profile so we can schedule a time to meet online and get the ball rolling. If you're still with me, I think you've enjoyed the video. Please support my channel. I would really appreciate it. Hit that like button. YouTube then knows to put this video in front of more people like yourself who would benefit from it. Let me know in the comments, perhaps some stuff you disagree with or things you really agree with. I'd love to get a dialogue going about living in Loma Linda. And of course, please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. All right, until next time.